is quite wonderful, since tonight we'll be talking quite a bit about generosity and some other key inner our way through this Beyond Religion book. This is a book by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Interesting for many of us in the room who aren't practitioners of Buddhism to see how can we apply these ideas in their most pith value. What does it mean truly to be a human, to have compassion? How do we do that? So this book has been quite a wonderful education. Before we get started with the meditation, and then we'll present some ideas, and we look forward to engaging with you all in conversation. I want to say that the San Francisco Dharma Collective really puts their values first in the center. And the values that the San Francisco Dharma Collective likes to really, I would say, emphasize is that people here feel welcome. And they can feel that they can be here, and they don't have to be specifically any kind of thing or any kind of way, showing up however you like. Our goal is to create here for this evening and every evening a community. That's a lot, since many of you have never seen each other. Maybe you've never seen us. So how do we create a community together, just tonight, for one night? So I invite us all to really take in as an invitation a sense of real open-heartedness with one another, in that we don't know what is going on for other people in this room. We may have an idea, because we can see them with our eyes or hear them through their voice. But to really have a sense of openness and warmth for whatever we hear or whatever we experience this evening. I know that's a tall order, but it's important for us to have good goals and aspirations. And if there is a point in this evening in which you feel uncomfortable or difficult or something challenging arises because of content that has been shared or something that anyone says, please feel free to take care of yourself, to get a cup of tea, to return to your breath. What we offer is guidance and instructions, and what's most important to us is you feel relaxed and at ease so that some of that can actually come in towards you in a meaningful way. So in that welcoming and in that openness, we also really encourage you to please reach out to us afterwards and let us know how we can create a space that has more of those qualities, in which people can show up here and feel that they can authentically practice, authentically connect, and we will do whatever we can within reason to support that. So thank you so much for your joining us this evening. We're going to start with a meditation in which we review simply these 4 qualities we'll focus on tonight. And those qualities are patience, contentment, self-discipline, and generosity. So you can completely forget that. They will be brought up in our meditation, but that's our idea coming in, is to find those qualities already in ourselves. So begin by finding a comfortable position for meditation, a seat that is both relaxed as well as upright, giving you a sense of vividness and clarity even at the end of the day. And before we immediately get started, just find everything possible that can allow you to enter into a posture where you can really relax and have stillness. That might mean even unbuckling a tight belt or finding a little bit more warmth. Taking that last moment to adjust what needs to be adjusted. And let's begin by finding a meaningful intention or aspiration. That intention or aspiration is a guiding light for us in our practice. It reminds us why we're here. You can think of an intention or aspiration that really is far-ranging. The way you would love to manifest in the world. You can also think of an intention or aspiration that meets you today where you are. Maybe my far-ranging aspiration is to continue to find ways to support justice in the world. And today, my aspiration is to give myself gentleness and rest. So find an intention or aspiration which is meaningful, and come up with a couple words or phrases, and silently repeat them to yourself. And for just a couple more breaths, imagine inhaling in this intention and aspiration, and exhaling the intention and aspiration, letting it extend in all directions. Gently release these words or phrases and bring the full force of your attention to the sensations in the body, noticing whatever can be noticed through the tactile sensations in the body. So giving yourself some free range and noticing. But not noticing all areas, not noticing sound, not noticing thoughts, just whatever can be experienced through this sense portal of sensation and tactile experience in the body. And as we notice these sensations in the body, invite a quality of stillness and stability to the experience of the body being supported by the ground or the chair beneath you. Allow the body to be a body of ease. as you're focusing on the breath and the body. Certainly there will be thoughts, memories, and images arise. Invite this quality of inner speech to also settle. If it's not possible to completely put it away, imagine turning down the volume. And inviting the mind to find an experience of stillness, spaciousness. This may only be experienced in tiny glimpses between thoughts and sensations. For a couple more breaths, we'll gift ourselves this simple noticing of sensations in the body. Now gently shift. We'll narrow and focus the attention a bit to notice the sensations at the belly. Notice as the belly rises and the skin slightly stretches. Notice as the belly falls through the exhale. And in this noticing of the simple rise and fall of the belly, we'll invite this quality, this inner value of patience. Patience with ourself as our mind will continue to go here and to go there, and gently guiding it back, without harshness, without feeling disappointed or depleted, with the strength and subtlety of patience. and you find yourself caught up in thought, memory, or image, gently and patiently release whatever has captured the attention. Relax and return to just noticing the sensations of breath at the belly. While still maintaining this primary focus on our breath at the belly, let's shift now to the inner value of contentment. Is there something here right now? In this simple breathing, in which you have everything you need. Is it possible to find a feeling of contentment, even satisfaction, with just noticing the breath? Contentment doesn't have to mean that everything in your life is okay, or even everything in your mind is okay right now. Contentment in this moment is simply revealing what may already be here. A simple okayness, a feeling of ease, of just noticing the breath. Each time we notice that our mind has slipped away to another area of interest, a thought, a sensation, memory, or image, we apply this other quality of self-discipline. Not to do so as a harsh taskmaster, but driven from the faith in our own capacity, that we can continue to come back and come back and come back. And that energy, that motivation, really honors our innate capacity. So with this quality of self-discipline, recommit to noticing the breath at the belly, sustaining the attention there for the entirety of the inhale and the entirety of the exhale. And then noticing and coming back time and time again when we're carried away. Keep finding the belly, finding the breath. And gently, we'll shift now to the quality of generosity. Beginning with the generosity we can have towards ourselves, an openness and caring for however we are right now, however our meditation has been going or not going. As we continue this simple yet difficult practice of sustaining our attention on the breath at the belly, do so with a generosity towards yourself. This simple generosity or kindness can be with the thoughts we wish weren't there, with the ache or the pain in our body. We also wish we could just deny or avoid. To Simply being generous and kind with whatever is already here for us. Now finding our way to receiving generosity. The profound generosity of being in a breathing body, in which we take in this air, it sustains and supports us. And continue our practice of noticing breath at the belly as a breath practice of receiving generosity. Thank you for your practice. I'd love to hear any thoughts or questions or reflections. What did you notice?
I noticed I was cheap with my attention. When it came time to give generosity, I could see how sometimes I'm not so generous with my attention and intuition. Can be diffused and giving a little over there, a little over there, a little bit, not fully giving to the body from the soles of my feet to the crown of my head, so it felt really good to be invited to do that. Yes.
Let me stand up so actually my legs can circulate more blood. Yeah, about contentment. It is so hard yet too easy to find, at least me, how cool I am right now while I was sitting. And yet I must still continue struggling with what happened to me yesterday. I was like, but I'm actually alright here. I'm doing what I like, I'm meditating. Why do I keep obsessed with something that happened yesterday? So yeah, that's just a little report about my contentment, or the lack of it.
felt a lot more dropped in with each breath. And there was like an expansiveness to it. It felt like my chest like opened up and felt larger. And it felt really good to like not just be like focusing, but to be feeling fulfilled by it. That was like a subtle shift, but it felt
Right, wonderful. Thank you. Isn't it amazing the attitude we bring, right? And can be so powerful.
Excuse me, along those lines, I noticed that those qualities get more accessible with practice, especially the first one, patience. I remember when I was younger, maybe my early 20s, I used to like pray for God or whatever was there to give me patience. And you know, please just give me patience. Well, please let me be patient. And someone told me once, it seems to make sense that I was put into situations that required patience, and that's how you learn patience. You don't just get poof, you know, magic wand, you're patient. And for all of those things, if you taste it a little bit and you know it, and then you say, oh, okay, that's how to access it for contentment or generosity, all those things. When they're just a concept, I was going back to when I was younger, wanting patience. I didn't know what it was. You know? I had to have it a little bit first and then, oh, okay, get a little more.
When you were talking about contentment, at first it was a little difficult also because I guess I was, like you said, well, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I was expecting it to be perfect, right? And then when you kind of like limited it to this moment, to this practice, and you know, then all of a sudden I felt like, oh God, you know, I'm not suffering, I'm sheltered, I'm fed. And then I just thought about like so many people who are not. So that really helped me also to shift, you know, that focus. And the other thing is, I think I used to take the breath for granted. And since I've been meditating, I find it so precious and sacred, really, because it's life. You know, so I was very thankful at the end of the meditation for having that.
Stand up.
When I go to sleep, it's when I need more patience. Because if I start telling myself, it's going to be very easy. And then I start thinking, how easy can I do it to go like this to sleep? Then I get very upset. I don't know if very upset, but at least enough not to allow myself to relax. So, when I start being there, I say to myself, meditate a little while. Just meditate. Even if you're lying, because I'm not just to meditate lying. And then next day I say, the miracle happened. It's just to say the word, to say the word, and then forget about the word.
I find that I'm often really impatient with the fact that I'm impatient. And feel like I need to be different or change or get better. And I'm just accepting that quite often I'm just an impatient person in my practice. And I felt a real sense of contentment today, even though the week and weekend was really rough. And I've been meditating at home, which I never do, and I'm going to my regular sits, and I'm reaching out to friends, and I'm doing all the things that are good for me, and I'm like, oh wow, I feel content, even though life is challenging right now. What a trip. And then I just dozed off into sleep. So I still struggle in evening meditations to stay completely conscious, but I just drift in and out. And feeling really content just puts me in my comfort zone. So it's good, it's still a challenge. Like I'm trying not to beat myself up for not doing it right, you know. But I'm doing it.
Glad to hear that you're finding the support. Sometimes it's time in our life to be okay with not being perfect and just be okay with that instead of fighting the practices. Embracing it.
I did not wake up perfect this morning.
Yeah, we don't want that. And if we turn away from everything in our life that's perfect, then we don't have anything to turn to. Life is messy. Meditation can be messy, especially at the end of the day. I'm tired. Thank you for that beautiful meditation. I really found it nourishing. And so what I'm going to do now is just give a little overview about where we're going and then talk about the first one, patience, a little bit more. Which is an important one for me too. So up until now, so we're at chapter 10 of this Beyond Religion book, and the last chapter is chapter 11. So we are close to the end. And we might get through the whole chapter tonight, we might not, we don't want to rush it. We might let it lead into the next class next week. But we'll see how far we get. We will be patient. We will not rush. We will try to walk our talk. And talk our walk. So this chapter is about developing, cultivating key inner values. Key inner values meaning positive values or characteristics. So we're training the mind in cultivating these key inner values of patience, discipline, contentment, generosity. We've also talked a lot about compassion in the past chapters, so we won't focus so much on compassion this evening, but it's there, definitely is the key inner value to bring forth. And the Dalai Lama says that these are qualities that we all have within us already. It's about watering the seeds so that they can grow and blossom into the decays of inner values that are nourishing and that bring us well-being. So the idea that he's laid out over the last few chapters is to refrain from negativity. Right? So the first kind of behavior, the first training is to notice where we might be enacting behaviors that bring us more and more suffering, and so to refrain from those. So we talked about the 10 non-virtues and different qualities, like just basic human ethics, and so to refrain from that. And so now this chapter is moving into the second prong approach, right? The first prong of the approach is to refrain from negativity that brings suffering. And then the second prong is to enact positive qualities and behaviors. So this is where we're at right now. And so, talking about patience, this first one that he lists is a very important one and a very one that's close to my heart. The term in Tibetan is zuba. Zuba. It's a fun one to say, why don't you try? Zuba. And my Tibetan language mentor, who Crystal has met, Kuno, He was an elder, he was a Tibetan elder who came into exile with His Holiness the Dalai Lama in 1959, and was his official biographer. The biographer of the prior Dalai Lama up until this Dalai Lama into the 1950s. And so it's a very interesting time in Tibetan political life, actually. So he passed away a few years ago, in his early 90s, and he lived on the grounds of the Dalai Lama's compound in Dharamsala. So I had the good fortune to study Tibetan language with him for many years. He became like a grandfather to me, very important figure in my life. But he used to always teach me Zöba, because he could tell that I was impatient. And so he would say to me, Zöba chu kiningo yin. Zöba chu kiningo yin, which means patience is the essence of Dharma. Patience is the essence of Dharma. It's not anything else. And he would drill it into me again and again. And I was kind of like, yeah, that sounds cool, but there's a lot of other cool stuff in Dharma too. I was in my early 20s. But I never forgot that phrase. It's one of the things he left me with. And the way that in Buddhism we define patience is the ability or the capacity to be with difficulty. So when you were guiding us even in meditation, and I was feeling like, okay, what does patience feel like in me right now in terms of meditating? Oh, I've got neck pain. You know, I might have an itch over here. My attention might be kind of wanting to be somewhere else, fluttering around a little bit. And so I remembered, okay, preparing for this class, what is the definition of patience? The ability or the capacity to be with difficulty. That's how we practice patience. That's how we practice patience. So when we meet difficulty, do we have a temper tantrum about it and complain to people? You know, and so the experience of being patient in meditation became palpable to me in a way that was very personal and not philosophical, because I was able to broaden my capacity of being with the neck pain, being with the itch, being with the agitated feeling of impatience. And so the important thing is that it's not like a passive or impotent attitude or approach to life, but rather genuine patience requires great strength and restraint based on mental discipline, which we'll get to in a moment, maybe. And so there are these three aspects of patience. How am I doing on time? Okay. So the first aspect is patience toward perpetrators of harm. And this one, I was like, oh God, I don't want to talk about this one. Oh, I am not an expert in this. I'm trying. I mean, just watching the State of the Union little highlights today. And preparing for this class, news. Prepare for the class, news. How can I bring these teachings to the way I'm feeling about you-know-who? So the way the Dalai Lama talks about this first category of patience towards perpetrators of harm, first of all, of course, it's important to understand why people do what they do, what caused them to do the horrible act. That's one way. It's an important first step. And then another approach that's very helpful is to really come to terms with the fact that me being angry at the jerk over there is not helping me at all. It's not good for me. Our anger is poisonous to us. It's not helping anything. So it's kind of a self-interest, a preservation too. Like, okay, I can have feelings about it, but I don't need to kind of stew in it as a justification as like the right way to be in response to the wrongdoer. Of course, the Dalai Lama, being a bodhisattva, goes on to say, perpetrators also, like us, wish to be free of suffering. And so, therefore, on a certain level, on a profound level, they also deserve compassion. So he proposes that kindness and forgiveness are much better responses to hostility than anger is. So I am not an expert in this, okay? I'm not going to sit up here and say that I'm able to forgive wrongdoers and that I have patience. So I called on one of the great gurus of our era, MLK, and I pulled up some quotations from Martin Luther King, and I wanted to share them with you because I feel like he has the right to speak to this. He writes, "We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies." And then another short quote from him. "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." Okay, thank you. Now I have some support and some guidance on how to do that and why it's important. It's also important to distinguish, this is also really key, and I think that this will be useful to many of us. It's important to distinguish between the act and the actor. And that we can have disdain and put up boundaries with the action and say no more. But we don't have to hate and disdain the actor. So that's something to chew on. So Trump, for example, his actions are horrible at times. But do we have to hate him? Can just hating him make us better? This is something. Yeah, I know. Stretch, we have to stretch. So we have to oppose the unjust acts, but retain a sense of concern and compassion for the perpetrators of harm, as the Dharma says. Okay, so that's the first aspect of patience. The next aspect of patience that he highlights is patience through acceptance of suffering. I had the top topic tonight, didn't I? I think I did. So, what the Dalai Lama says, it's very Buddhist in flavor here, is that suffering is unavoidable. We're born in samsara, the wheel of suffering. Things are impermanent. We're always going to suffer. Our enemies become our friends become our enemies. Things are always changing. And if we're having attachment onto these things, then we'll suffer even more. And so I want to read a quotation from His Holiness the Dalai Lama on page 139 of Beyond Religion. This is on patience through acceptance of suffering. Traveling the world, he says, I have noticed that people in less developed countries whose lives are hard in material terms often seem more contented than those in more affluent countries who have relatively easy lives. Beneath the outward affluence is materially advanced society. In materially advanced societies lies a good deal of inner anxiety and dissatisfaction. Is that true? While in poorer countries, I often am struck by the simple joy one often encounters. How to account for this? It seems that hardship, in forcing us to exercise greater patience and forbearance in life, actually makes us stronger and more robust. From the daily experience of hardship comes a greater capacity for accepting difficulties without losing in any sense of calm. He goes on, but I think we get the gist here. And then a great quotation of Shantideva that he cites a little later on, which is one of my all-time favorites, which I try to teach to my children because it's so potent. If there's a solution to a problem, then what is the need for dejection? If there's no solution to a problem, then what is the point in dejection? Meaning, if there's a solution to a problem, what's the use in worrying about it? If there's not a solution to a problem, what's the use in worrying about it? Let's meet it. Let's be. Rather than getting wrapped up in a dejection or And also, personal suffering can catalyze us into spiritual growth. Yeah, I think there's no question about that, for better or for worse. It makes us more humble, and then more in line with reality. And this brings me to the third, which is patience through contemplation of reality. And what is reality? Reality is changing. Reality is impermanent. We will all go through sickness, hopefully old age, and death eventually. So to contemplate that the inevitable human facet of life is this process of birth and death. And to come to terms with that and not fighting or struggling against reality in that sense. And then, so to highlight that, I want to read a quotation from one of my favorite poets, Jennifer Wellwood. A poem called The Dakini Speaks. And then I'll hand it off to you. She says, so the Dakini is the enlightened essence in feminine form. Dakini, she's wrathful, sometimes she's peaceful, she's everywhere, she's you, me, she's the one who pulls the rug out from under us, she's the one who surprises us with a lightning strike to the head. So this is a poem called The Dakini Speaks. It's an archetypal energy. My friends, let's grow up. Let's stop pretending we don't know the deal here. Or if we truly haven't noticed, let's wake up and notice. Look, everything that can be lost will be lost. It's simple. How could we have missed it for so long? Let's grieve our losses fully, like right human beings. But please, let's not be so shocked by them. Let's not act so betrayed. As though life had broken her secret promise to us. Impermanence is life's only promise to us. And she keeps it with ruthless impeccability. To a child, she seems cruel, but she is only wild, and her compassion exquisitely precise. Brilliantly penetrating, luminous with truth, she strips away the unreal to show us the real. This is the true ride. Let's give ourselves to it. Let's stop making deals for a safe passage. There isn't one anyway, and the cost is too high. We are not children anymore. The true human adult gives everything for what cannot be lost. Let's dance the wild dance of no hope. What is that thing that cannot be lost? What do you think it is? Not Eve, Eve knows what it is. What's beyond birth and death? Are you here? Are you awake? It's that wakefulness. It's that presence. It's the presence that we're swimming in all the time, and it's here all the time, we don't even notice it. It's your Buddha nature. Whatever you want to call it. Find that. That's why we meditate. Yeah. So that's patience. You have to be patient in the struggle because it's not easy to find it. It takes time.
Yes. I think I'm an expert in impatience.
Yeah, good. Yeah, take it
I
away.
know its contours and its features so well. It's so urgent, and I really do. I love how you presented those stages and phases and how His Holiness presented them. And that contemplation on impermanence and on death is so powerful to help us with impatience. Like truly, like what is there to be impatient about when you recognize that there's a good possibility any of us could not be here tomorrow. Right? Not to get morbid, but just to get a little bit less stuck and tight in our worldview and frame. about what's okay and isn't okay, and how things should be lining up for us. So I think it's yeah, and I think patience is not necessarily a core value we're all aspiring to work towards. Compassion feels pretty noble and regal, but patience feels a little like, yeah, okay, I'll get there. Maybe if I'm sick at home, I'll try that. And yet, as you heard from the way Chandra described it, there's actually very little, if any, difference between patience and compassion. Did you hear anything different between what she said about patience and compassion? He does this every time in the book. Everything is connected to compassion. And patience is very much connected to compassion. Right? How much can we be, in a very loving way, present with what's already here, with the suffering around us, with the harm that's around us, enacted by other people, and with the reality that we are going to die. How patient, how compassionate can we be? So I just really appreciate that. And the segue to contentment, I did get the easy side. Yeah, contentment, let's work on that. I got it. I'm content. I'm content. And I will say that the way he presents contentment is quite interesting. It's a bit different than what some of us may think of. He gives this great description of going to a mall, and all I could do was be like, I wish I was there. I want to see the Dalai Lama go to a mall for one of the first times. And he said that, actually he found himself getting kind of caught up with all the sparkly, shiny stuff. And was like, I want this, and I think I want that. But then he said, do I really need it? Of course, most of the time the answer is no. So my first thoughts were coming from a kind of instinctive greed. But as soon as I checked myself and took a realistic view, I no longer felt any need to acquire or control those items. This is what I understand by the application of contentment. Wow. Right? So not like I am, in this blissful equanimity of serenity. It's more, I don't need more. And I really like that. And if we think about it to our meditation practice, if I'm content right here, I'm not needing more. I'm like, oh man, I wish I had 2 more zafus, one for my right knee and one for the back, and then this would be a good practice, right? Or whatever it is that we think we actually need. In fact, we're just right here, and even you were sitting over there cold with your legs falling asleep under you, and you found contentment. So I really like that, and I think this idea of that I am overcoming instinctive greed. That's very de-shaming. So not my greed or my consumeristic, brainwashed mind living in this society and culture. No, instinctive greed. I can relate to instinctive greed. Buffets, you guys know at retreat centers, anywhere else, and you're like, ooh, wow, there's some really nice fresh fruit today. And you get back to your table and you're like, how will I ever finish this mound of fruit? That's just my instinctive greed. It's not or mine, it's just instinctive greed. This idea of wanting to get that. And yet it creates so much agitation for us. Because often our instinctive greed leads us to the opposite of contentment. Craving, moving after. So when we cultivate contentment, it isn't, I'm content because I'm going to get everything I need. It's content because I already have everything I need. Such a simple idea, and yet I really love it applied to this. And he says, referring to contentment as a key ethical value, it creates a little confusion, actually. Because people say, well, if you're working towards your contentment, isn't that kind of self-absorbed? What does that actually have to do with really being of service to others? This has nothing to do with that whatsoever. And I think, again, he helps with our translation of understanding contentment, of just knowing what is enough. And if we know what is enough, then we allow ourselves to rest in an underlying state of satisfaction, confident in the knowledge that we are living by the ideals we seek to uphold. Wow. Yes,
I'd like to share something.
please.
I'm reaching the end of my life. I'm 82 years old. And I don't know how much longer I'll be around. And I look at all the stuff I've collected over the years.
Yeah.
Trying to reduce the stuff in my life. And I've been giving things away. And it's very freeing. I gave away, among many other things, a really nice guitar, which I know I'll never play again. And it ended up in the hands of a younger man who loves to play the guitar. He sent me an email saying he's been playing it all day and it has a wonderful sound. Wow. Nothing better than that if I want to give things away.
Yeah.
Find a home with someone who loves it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, and you also gave us wonderfully a sneak preview of generosity. Right? Which is also just, and these, as we were practicing them, I realized that it's not that they were progression, but that these values are really held within one another. And so if we have a sense of contentment, how much easier is generosity going to be? Like 10 times? 1,000,000 times easier? If we are content, generosity is almost like a natural currency. It's like, well, I have everything I need. Oh, do you want some? Because I already have enough. So amazing. And I realized I was thinking about that which actually gets in the way, right? What is impeding our natural contentment? Usually, for me, I'll speak for myself. Let's see if this resonates. When I'm too busy. I am not, I'm like, I need to get, there's something else. And then my generosity, it's okay, right? And yet if I'm not feeling too busy or too spread thin, it just is so natural. It's such a sweet feeling of wanting to be of service in small and large ways for others. And it's, I'm curious, anyone have another way they can think of what gets in the way of your contentment? Feeling as though there's already enough? Feeling satisfied? Yes?
I keep thinking about Brene Brown in this and how she says, like, we say, I'm sad, I am impatient, right? I'm an impatient person, but it's like, impatience is here, sadness is here. And so for me, what gets in the way is being so identified as like, this is who I am, this is what's happening. But if I can remember that, like, actually what we are is this is Buddha nature, and there is sadness here, or there's impatience here, there's like immediately space. Not always, sometimes the feelings are too strong, or the identification is all mucked up, but like that, it's a huge part of like the mindfulness practice, the training. Right?
Yes, awesome. And added bonus to that is the more specific and granular you can get in describing how you feel. So intense frustration is here, or some mixture of shame and anxiety is here. We even get more distance because we're using our mind to think more clearly about what's happening. So we can, whatever, feeling bad is here, pretty good. Feeling this certain level of anticipation because I don't know what's going to happen, oh my God, coming home. So, yeah.
It also gives like an acknowledgement to the body, right?
Yeah.
Because that's often where we feel the feelings,
Right.
like to even give attention.
Exactly.
Where is that?
Yeah.
Where is that impatience coming from?
Right.
And then there's just like an association instead of all this kind of dissociated stuff.
Yes. Yeah, and you think of, right, I was thinking of patience and how incredibly hard it is, and also how incredibly invaluable it is. In between us and our destructive emotional response, only patience can really help us, right? That beautiful gap between stimulus and response, that's patience. It is heroic. So really, thank you for that. What else gets in the way of contentment? Yeah.
Shame,
Oh yeah.
for me, is like the big, because shame happens, shame arises, and then immediately it's like whatever's happening right here has to be different so that the shame can be placated, because the shame is so intolerable. So there's just no contentment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the shame, like, I don't deserve to be content.
Just like shame, like I am bad.
And content is
Versus
for those who are
this
good.
situation sucks. Right, so when the whatever suckiness gets personal. and identify and glue.
I wonder, no idea, could we be content with being bad?
That's what I'm working on right now. That's what I was saying earlier.
I mean, my guess is a lot of our shame, of course, is really escalated and projected, and yet, you know, the forcing it away doesn't quite work.
I'm
Right.
working on the aversion towards the shame.
Yeah,
Not
right.
even the shame yet. Like, oh, okay, there's shame here. Oh, then there's aversion to the shame.
Yeah.
And then there's aversion to the aversion to the shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is absence of contentment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and just on the Western psychological perspective on this, especially measuring what is happiness, as I brought up here before, is so hard. And actually we define it in really different ways. And this contentment has more to do with tranquility or peace and what is, you know, well-being. And Chandra and I, you may have noticed we've rebranded. We are well of being this evening. We believe that, you know, that really captures so much, the beingness, the wellness. And this idea is not ecstatic joy and happiness. It's not sensory pleasure. And with contentment, it doesn't even actually mean that things are good. So that, I think, is a really different way of the way that, you know, especially Western psychology looks at it. Like well-being, usually we have an idea that someone's, they're pretty good. What about content irrespective of outside circumstances? Yeah.
So the way I usually think about myself is like I lack satisfaction. And I always think about that word even when I was meditating. When you were talking about contentment, I was thinking about satisfaction. I feel just not satisfied. And now that you bring that up, it's interesting because I think that satisfaction is kind of implies some external things that you're unhappy about or you know, you feel some sense of I don't know, distance from, but the contentment is something that's kind of in you always, and you just have to kind of unlock it and sit there and just be there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think in some ways it's like more related to how much can you tolerate the distress of it, right?
That's really hard.
Yeah, and I think that, again, you need patience in some ways. Like these are very interlocking, and I like that you bring that up. I think that not feeling satisfied, yeah, it's part of this human experience. Intrinsic greed, maybe that's even a little harsh, but that longing, that wanting, it's why we've created everything, it's why we're in a building, right? It's why it has driven so much good innovation, and yet it lets us, unfortunately, at the end of the day, feel as though there's not enough. Sometimes, you know, we're not quite there. My first word was more, so I can relate. Literally. What's next? And it's such a, you know, it's so interesting to, you know, I saw you kind of moving there, like, where is it? Where is satisfaction? And what is its quality? Like, what is it like? I think that's a really beautiful investigation of noticing, oh, right now, just right now. It's a really interesting way to approach that. Yeah, anybody else? See you in the back and then in the front? Yes?
Yeah, so I've definitely lost contentment through some of kind of the macroscopic ways that we've been talking about in the last few minutes. And there's another thing as well, which is there's a like loss of contentment through grasping. Like there's moments where, you know, I do feel good.
Yeah.
And then there's the part of saying, aha, now I feel good. And in that moment, it's like trying to bag a rainbow or something.
Yeah.
And you're stuck, you can't. Or I can't, speaking for myself. And maybe also there's a moment in the conscious recognition of contentment, somewhere tacked along with that is the fear of loss. So, right. So, there's almost this sense that in labeling something and sort of standing back to or having space from it to say, here's contentment, that I'm almost inviting the other shoe to drop. Feeling that.
Love that, bagging a rainbow. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out so specifically. Yeah.
When I write, I'm a writer, so I write every day. And when I'm writing, I'm feeling that it's so wonderful what I'm writing. It's so easy. And then the next day I go back, every next day I go back and read it again. And I say, I can't believe it. I'm saying nothing. It's horrible. So I'm every day, one day I'm very happy, next day I'm very happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at least I know the difference between, let's say, I don't know in Spanish, modestia, you need more, not to feel that, you need it.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, so that like contentment is also not getting so high to then have the deep low.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
I was going to say, if suffering is, just the desire for it to be different than the way it is right now. I either want more of something or whatever, I don't want it. Is contentment just the absence of that?
Yeah, being okay. And I wanted to point out this last line is that confident in the knowledge that we're living by the ideals we seek to uphold. So there's like, I'm okay with the way things are because I know that I'm living by my ideals. Not going the way I want it, maybe not happening as fast, but I am living, and I was sharing with Chandra, we have a couple teachers in common, and one of our teachers, Alan Wallace, says, when you have the feeling of the bliss of blamelessness, you lay your head down at night, no one that you feel bad, nothing you feel bad about, no one you feel you wronged or hurt. You lived in accordance with your values. That's a deep contentment.
Also the absence of craving, I think you touched on that a little bit earlier, but to really highlight that, especially coming out of the ACS crew, with Being Your Demons work and the recovery work, it's interesting to think about contentment in terms of an absence, so defining it by a negative, so to speak. So feeling content is the no more longing or no regret, but also not really craving Netflix or coffee or sex, and that you're okay just as you are here. And the other thing that helps me too, some of the things that we've talked about is, I really appreciated what you brought in terms of Brene Brown, and that's really wonderful and helpful. And other times too, I've been benefited by a simple phrase of, a part of me feels scared. A part of me feels ashamed. A part of me is, what were you talking about? Discontent, or a part of, so it's not all of me. It's not my whole ego that's identified with that thing. I'm not defining my full self as that, but I'm recognizing and I'm turning towards and acknowledging that a part of me feels angry. A part of me feels jealous. But it's not all of me, and there's something really helpful about just simple phrases. Throw that out there. Try it on, see if it helps you. I think I could do self-discipline. You think? Or go ahead.
Oh yeah. But yeah. Sure. Yeah. Did you have one in mind for this specifically?
No.
Okay. You do. Maybe a little self-discipline.
A little self-discipline. I could get two really fun ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in addition to like, it's enough is like contentment coming from feeling that I am enough.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that.
I know. That's a good one. That's a good mantra to repeat in meditation. Just let it sink in. You're enough. You don't need to do that. You're enough. All right, so self-discipline is the third aspect of these inner values that we're talking about. and it's closely connected to contentment. There's something about self-discipline that can be very nourishing, but it must come from within you. What he says, the Dalai Lama says, this must be voluntarily embraced. Voluntarily embraced. But
It's really funny.
I know. When we impose self-discipline, it's rarely effective. There's an echo in here, isn't there? Yeah. Is it me? I'm not gonna. Too much. So, without fear, without shame, without guilt. So that's great, because when I read that, I was like, thank God, they didn't tell me that earlier. You know, we bring shame and guilt, and I'm an imposter. If I'm not doing things perfectly, that's why I just said at the beginning of class, my practice right now, just to be totally transparent, is being okay with not getting it all right, you know. But that's hard, because there's still a lot of shame in that. So part of me is okay with not getting right. That's more of an honest statement. So when it's voluntary self-discipline, it's more enduring. And Lama Tsoltram said something that helped me so much. She said, in terms of meditation, of course I'm thinking about this discipline in terms of meditation, but it can be understood in terms of diet, behavior, everything. But in terms of meditation, go to meditation like you would go to meet your lover. And if that's not happening for you, then figure out what it takes to get it to be like that for you. What nourishes you? What makes you feel met when you sit down? Not like, what should you be doing? Yeah. What should you be doing? Accumulating these number of mantras or these hours, it can be really stifling for the creative inspiration. And so, go to the cushion in the way that you would go to your lover.
So how did you figure it out?
You know what? Honestly, what I'm doing right now is when I sit down, free of all the shoulds, I just put my hands on myself and I say, how are you doing right now? How are you doing? What do you need? You know, and then I go from there. And I've got all these great tools. Sometimes it's no tool, it's just looking at that beautiful sky. Sometimes it's playing guitar and crying when my eye falls out. You know, whatever. Yeah. So there are benefits to discipline, such as when we have this kind of inspired self-discipline, we tend to feel happy, content, and also I would say confident in who we are. There's a confidence that comes from doing what we know is good for us. It's about doing what you know is good for you and refraining from doing the things that we know don't make us feel good. As much as we can. So he talks about lack of self-discipline can lead to things like abuse, corruption, and corruption comes from not refraining from a bit more base human impulses such as greed, bias, dishonesty. So, but when we understand what helps us, what's good for us, what's not so good for us, when we understand through our own trial and error in our life, then we can have this, then we can more readily kind of resist the things that we know, okay, I've been around the block, I mean, as an 82-year-old Arnie, you know what works for you and what you should avoid. You know, as a 46-year-old, I'm getting better at it, but I'm still a little in denial on some things. So, what the Dalai Lama says is don't despair. Eventually, the more and more you practice this, the more and more it becomes natural for you. It can be sustained because it's a natural thing. You're not pushing to make it work. And then you feel freedom, a kind of a freedom that comes from, the irony is that you find freedom within limitation. That's the koan ritual. Freedom within the limitation of some certain values that you know you need in order to live a fulfilling life. and that's what he calls self-mastery. I don't know what you think about the term mastery, but anyway, I get what he's getting at, is this sense of ownership of me, or agency.
And very prescient, right? He's drawing this from what he learned and ancient wisdom passed down, and this is what a lot of behavioral science will tell you as well, right? How do we employ these mechanisms to shift and change our behavior? And we do so by enjoying it. Must enjoy, must repeat. And so there's a real sweetness. And I think the self-discipline, not again out of a should, but the self-discipline because those limitations also they're found to increase our creativity. So they've done a lot of research on creativity and thinking, and within bounds, if you have certain limitations, you actually become more creative. So I think when most of us think of discipline, it sounds boring and dry. It'll like take away from us the natural flow. Maybe not. Investigate and check that out. Because discipline, to me, it always reminds me of routine. I don't know if other folks have that. When I think of discipline, it means there would be a routine and I would keep to it. Routines are awesome. They don't have to be rigid, right? And so I think it's really beautiful. Of course, we think of the self-discipline to allow us to practice. I've met some very disciplined people who exert all their energy towards optimizing their body. Also cool, but won't get you any closer to compassion. So just to keep in mind that this discipline that we're talking about is still in the service of these greater goals, to serve ourselves so that we can be present and available for all beings. I'll give you 2 minutes on generosity. It's interesting, another teacher who we share, Jennifer Wellwood, this wonderful poetess, I am so lucky that her generosity recently has been focusing her teachings for the last 3 weeks on generosity. And she has a very unique take. The Dalai Lama, what he presents is lovely, and what you might already expect, right? This kind of quality of giving that comes naturally. I am generous, and thereby I actually feel the kindness and recognize it supports me. And that's true. There's a virtuous cycle of generosity. What Jennifer Wellwood has pointed out to us, to those in her community in the last couple of weeks, is that there's a couple levels of generosity. There's the generosity we have with ourselves. We did that in meditation of, I'm going to be generous with myself, which means I'm going to kind of be okay with what's here. That's also really kind. And then there's also this generosity that we have with life as it is, instead of the life we want it to be. And that includes or requires qualities of being just open. So generosity having a quality of openness, as well as the kindness. I thought that was very transformative for me. How can I be more generous with the life that's presented to me? And how generous can I be with that? And that really deeply moved me. And I think of how often we are generous, especially when it kind of fits within our idea of how we want to help. But how do we make that a boundless generosity, right, with whatever is being shown to us? So in meditation, showing up to our meditation with this quality of, as Chandra said so beautifully, what do you need? That is so generous, right? And what do you need? And then going from there. So bringing that quality of generosity to our practice as well, so that we can emanate and radiate it out. But I especially have been moved by this idea of generosity to what life is offering you. What is it? Is it illness of a family member? Is it losing your job? Is it losing a friendship? What is it? And is there a way to have a generosity of, okay, this too, right? As sometimes you hear Dharma teachers say, you invite it in also. Okay, you're also here. And not, again, not with an agenda, an expectation. Generosity is openness. And what's really interesting about generosity is it very quickly can find its way to gratitude. And I find gratitude to just be, I said it before, it's like the gateway drug to devotion. And devotion, in my humble experience of it, has been one of the most profound feelings of deep, deep well-being I ever experienced. There's this devotion experience, and if you don't know what devotion is, no problem. Think of it as immense gratitude and being humbled by your gratitude. So that's my upsell on generosity. Be generous, be open to what life is offering you and what is already here for you right now.
Let's take a moment, drop in. Give yourself the breath in the belly, release, open the heart space, feeling of interdependence that we join together in community as a mandala, to dive deep, to be of benefit. And offer this out, feel this web of community emanating out in all directions around the world and beyond. Offering these qualities of patience and contentment and self-discipline and generosity. May these permeate our existence, our experience. May they grow. May others benefit as well. We give thanks to His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all of our teachers for guiding us on the path. Our Kalyana Mitras, our spiritual friends. Thank you. So as many of you know, this center is run solely on generosity. Dharma, which is the Pali or Sanskrit also word for generosity. So you have an opportunity to help us support the electricity, the sound, and the lights, and the people, so that we can all come together. So anything you can give is wonderful, and of course no one is turned away for lack of funds. Give according to your own capacity. And I'm sure there are wonderful workshops coming up and so on. Maybe somebody wants to say,
I'm
but
just
first,
gonna give
before
a
you
few,
start that, I just want to say real quick, that's okay. Just next week I'll be teaching, and then Eve will teach after that. We're going to be wrapping up the book within the next couple weeks probably, yeah?
Yeah, and Tig will be joining us.
And Eve will be joining us on the 29th, 20-something like that, at the end of the month. And then I'll be doing Feeding Your Demons on March 4th. So I'm trying to do Feeding Your Demons every 6 weeks or so. And so March 4th, come and bring a friend or friends. I'll guide you through feeding, you can feed your demons. And then after that, on March 11th, Eve will be cracking open our new book, which is called Open Heart, Open Mind by Sokni Rinpoche. Yeah. So you have a couple weeks to get that and start reading if you like. It's so awesome. Yeah. There it is, you got it. Oh, yeah. That's it. Open heart, open mind. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Super fast so everybody knows hopefully that we have stuff going on like pretty much 24/7 here. So check out the wall. But just to highlight we have 2 day-longs this weekend. So from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. is called Window to the Soul, Painting as Meditation. And if you guys remember the art show that was up here before this one, it's the woman that did that art. So the partner of my class, Christina,
she's awesome.
And she's going to be doing. There's some things that you might need to bring, so get a flyer. And then Kevin Griffin, who's really amazing, is going to be doing a day long on Sunday, 10 to 4, Spiritual Awakening on the Path of Recovery. He's one of the trailblazers in incorporating sort of 12-step practice with Buddhism, and he's just fierce.
I've also heard that we need more volunteers.
So we do.
So if the generosity of cash and huge donations is not near a possibility, but you have a night a week that you could come and be a host here, it would be so generous, even if you can do it once a month. Yeah?
Yeah. And we have another amazing, so I have this card up at the desk. We've had a volunteer that has almost singly cleaned this center every single week for 4 years. And and she had retired already from her job, and now she's retiring from this particular volunteer position. So if anyone wants to thank Rita, who's a freaking rock star, here's the card for her that lovely Brendan got. And if anybody's like, oh, once a week cleaning the center would be amazing, Donna, and just like it's cleansing and a beautiful practice, I think talk to Brendan, who is cozy back there in his hat. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Pamela. You too, good? Everybody else?
Thank you.